Fleet, the USS Chicago, will be commissioned in Norfolk, Virginia tomorrow. In advance of commissioning, Rick Rosenthal takes a look tonight at the role the Chicago can expect to play as part of our nation's overall defense.
Our national defense has three basic elements, the so-called triad. There are the land-based intercontinental ballistic missiles, including the new MX Peacekeeper missile, each of them capable of delivering 10 independently targetable nuclear warheads. Bombers make up the second element of the triad. Our aging B-52s are now being replaced by the sophisticated B-1 bombers, capable of automatic, high-speed, terrain-hugging flight to avoid enemy detection. Submarines are the third and final core element of our national defense. The ballistic missile subs, the boomers as they're called, are considered almost invulnerable. Older ones with their Poseidon missiles are being replaced by the new Ohio-class subs with their multiple warhead Trident missiles. In total submarines, the Soviet Union outnumbers the United States almost 3-to-1. Our attack submarines are designed to balance that equation.
To control the seas, one has to control the submarine problem, and our attack submarine force would be a very, very critical element in operating in forward areas where we didn't enjoy air cover or any other kind of support. So they're a critical element to our total capability.
The USS Chicago is the Navy's newest fast attack submarine. Launched in October of 1984, she has since been undergoing outfitting and sea trials in preparation for commissioning on Saturday.
How's the outfitting going?
Well, it's going very well. We've been to sea for a couple of weeks, and we put the ship through its paces and operated all the equipment, seen what it can do, and it's a beautiful ship, runs nice.
The Chicago is nuclear-powered. Exact specifications are classified, but the Chicago is reported to be capable of speeds in excess of 30 knots, about 35 miles an hour, and capable of diving to a depth of 1,475 feet. As the newest nuclear attack sub in the Navy fleet, the USS Chicago is going to be joining other submarines like the Norfolk and the Baton Rouge in Squadron 8 that's headquartered in Norfolk, Virginia. The motto of Squadron 8, swift, silent, and deadly. The Chicago and other subs of her class are armed with the Mark 48 heavy torpedo. After firing, the Mark 48 remains temporarily linked to the sub by wire, getting guidance and sending back data before delivering 650 pounds of high explosives to enemy submarine or surface targets. The Chicago can also launch Harpoon missiles against enemy surface ships as far as 60 nautical miles away, and Tomahawk cruise missiles, which can deliver conventional or nuclear warheads against enemy surface ships or enemy installations on shore. As formidable a weapons platform as attack subs like the Chicago are, it is still the big deck carriers that form the basis of U.S. naval strategy. Critics contend such carriers are too big, too expensive, and too vulnerable to enemy submarines.
The idea of basing your Navy around a handful of ships, 15 at the most, if the Navy's plans are fulfilled, in the face of hundreds of Soviet submarines is a prescription for disaster.
The Soviet Union bases its naval strategy on its submarines, not carriers like the U.S. Lind argues we should follow the Soviets' example and counter their 3-to-1 numerical advantage by building many more subs of our own. Nuclear subs like the Chicago and some non-nuclear diesel-electric submarines, which are markedly cheaper and in many roles as effective as nuclear subs. The Reagan administration disagrees.
When you have limited resources, you have to get the thing that is most needed, and the thing that is most effective, that is most needed, are more of the nuclear-powered attack submarines.
In fact, the Navy is already designing a new nuclear attack sub, the Seawolf, which officials say will be quieter, deeper diving, and carry twice the firepower of the Chicago. For WGN News, I'm Rick Rosenthal.
Well, the Chicago will be commissioned tomorrow. Rick will be in Norfolk for all the festivities.
Injured were...
Thank you. Lake County officials estimate more than $8 million.
Now, the U.S. Navy today commissioned its newest nuclear attack submarine, the $230 million USS Chicago. Rick Rosenthal was in Norfolk, Virginia for the commissioning, and he filed this report.
It was a gala occasion that capped 4 years of construction as the city of Chicago and the Navy renewed an on-again, off-again relationship that goes back almost 100 years. The first USS Chicago was a cruiser, commissioned in 1889, one of the Navy's first steel warships. The second Chicago, also a cruiser, was sunk by Japanese torpedoes in 1943. Chicago No. 3, a cruiser, fought late in World War II and was later converted to carry guided missiles and served in the Vietnam War before being taken out of service in 1980. The newest Chicago is a nuclear-powered fast attack submarine. Her primary mission is to hunt and kill enemy subs, and officials believe the Chicago and other submarines of her class are well equipped for that mission.
They are, first of all, very quiet, very capable sensor systems, very good weapon systems, so they're a very competent platform for submarine versus submarine type operations, detection and kill.
The Chicago is armed with the Mark 48 heavy torpedo. She carries the Harpoon missile for use against surface ships, and the Tomahawk cruise missile, which can carry conventional or nuclear warheads. It all adds up to a formidable threat, which officials say the U.S. Navy needs.
Matching the newer submarines of the Soviets coming online require us to have a more sophisticated, more capable type of submarine.
Many of her specifications are classified, but the Chicago is reported to be capable of speeds above 30 knots, roughly 35 miles an hour, and is believed able to dive to almost 1,500 feet. After extensive outfitting, today was the Chicago's coming out party. With today's commissioning, the shipbuilder formally delivered the Chicago to the Navy, and she officially joined the fleet. Some 1,500 guests were there, including families of the crew, and Mayor Washington, who praised the city's namesake sub.
This is a marvelous thing. I wish every Chicagoan were here. I think they'd be very proud, one, of the fact that we in this country can produce such a thing as the USS Chicago, and two, the fact that their city bears its name, has the name on this vessel.
The commissioning pennant was hoisted, and the crew, as part of the ceremony, was ordered aboard in the traditional posting of the watch. The crew drew tribute from actor Charlton Heston, an Illinoisan, and the keynote speaker.
I thank you all for serving. It's an honor to stand for a moment beside you.
Traditionally, a city which has a Navy ship named after it sponsors the commissioning activities. Now, no tax dollars are being used, only private contributions. They'll pay for a reception this afternoon, a party for the crew tonight, and gifts for the USS Chicago.
The Chicago Commissioning Committee is giving the ship 24 five-piece place settings of fine china, handmade by the Picard Company of Antioch. The china is embossed in 24-karat gold with the Chicago's unique emblem. 2 original watercolor paintings donated by local artists Irving Shapiro and James Alt show familiar Chicago scenes and will be hung aboard. United Airlines is giving each member of the Chicago crew 2 free round-trip tickets to visit their boat's namesake city. While at sea, the crew will watch first-run movies on 2 videotape recorders provided by a friend. Donated curtains for each enlisted man's bunk carry the city's skyline. To supporters, all these gifts add up to civic pride.
It's a privilege any time a vessel that's on a peacekeeping mission is named after any area, especially a city like Chicago.
Anti-nuclear activists disagreed. When Mayor Washington proclaimed a special USS Chicago Week, they were there to point out the city of Chicago is, by council ordinance, a nuclear weapons-free zone, the largest in the U.S.
Calling a boat that is going to be carrying Tomahawk cruise missiles the USS Chicago is a slap in the face to all of those people who would like to have a productive and healthy future.
Members of Chicago's crew see themselves as guardians of the nation's productive and healthy future. They appreciate the city's support, especially those crewmen who are from the Chicago area.
I think it's great. I just look back and see that my hometown's really supporting us, and I feel good that they're doing that.
What does serving aboard the USS Chicago mean to a Chicagoan such as yourself?
Gives me a great deal of pride. Being from Chicago, being on the Chicago.
Makes me have more to be proud of because it's back home. I have a lot of cousins and relatives that live in Chicago, too.
In all, 115 enlisted men and 12 officers will be serving on board the USS Chicago, with training now their principal focus. Estimates are it may take as long as 2 years before the Chicago becomes as battle-ready as her sister ships. In Norfolk, Virginia, I'm Rick Rosenthal, WGN News.
The war at sea is not the only one we are concerned about. The war